Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says a COVID blot on India's foreign policy canvas. The article here discusses about India accepting aid from the foreign countries after 17 years and its likely consequences on India's regional and global power equations. Before we understand what this article is all about, let's have a brief idea with respect to the background. Back in the year 2004, we have the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh who made an announcement that India would not accept any of the foreign aid. Why was this decision taken by the former Prime Minister? That is because, according to him, India was capable of managing any of the domestic crises, be it a natural or a man made one. India felt that it would be able to manage the domestic crisis. Why was this position taken? When it comes to the foreign policy, India will have its relationship with number of countries. When there is a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, request for donation or aid can be made by multiple countries. India might accept few donations or aid. It might not accept few donations or aid. So what would happen? It would create an impression for those countries where India did not accept that it does not have good relationship with that country. So in order to balance all the countries and in order to showcase that we are an economic powerhouse ourselves, India took this particular decision that it did not want to accept any of the aid from any of the countries. In fact, India also wanted to ensure that it is itself a powerhouse, so it wanted to become an aid donor in South Asia as well as to the other countries rather than accepting the aid from the foreign countries. This particular position was taken in 2004 after the devastation was created by tsunami. But this particular position is now changed and India is accepting aid in the present situation because of the COVID-19 pandemic, says this article. So what would be the likely consequences is what is this article all about. So the author here brings into picture couple of issues because of the aid acceptance by India. One is in reference to the infrastructural issue. Two is in reference to the strategic issue. Three is its impact on the foreign policy. And finally, what would happen with respect to India is what is the author trying to convey. First up, let's have a brief idea with respect to the infrastructural issues. When COVID-19 hit the world, it was somewhere in February 2020 and much prior as well in November in China as well. But most of the countries started facing the heat of COVID-19 only from March. After March, most of the countries entered the phase of lockdown, and after that, it was predicted that second wave would be much more devastating. So it was felt in United Kingdom. USA also saw to an extent second wave as well. There were countries like Brazil and South Africa which also saw second wave as well, and European countries did face the impact of second wave. But in spite of the time, in spite of the decreasing cases of COVID-19, we were not able to stand up for the second wave, which means that India was not able to plan. We had infrastructural issues, health lacunae when it comes to the second wave, says the author. Ideally, when it comes to the principles of the disaster management, what is that we have to focus on? We have to focus on the worst. We have to prepare for the worst. But when it comes to this particular issue of second wave of COVID-19, we were not prepared. We were not ready with the infrastructural advancements. As a result, India is the major sufferer. So what would be the impact? The impact would be that did we fail to establish a model is the first major question. When it comes to handling of the COVID-19, when you look at major countries, you have what is called as South Korea model. You have what is called as New Zealand model. You also have what is called as the China model as well. These models were imported by multiple other countries so that they can cut down on the increasing cases of COVID-19. But during this particular period, had India managed the second wave or the first wave in a much better way, we could have established what is called as the Indian model of handling COVID-19. But unfortunately, we were not able to showcase such a model where South Asian countries which look up to India do not have anything to look up to now in the present crisis, and as a result, because of the infrastructural issues, because we were not able to manage the health crisis, we do not have a much better position right now, says the author. So the author here is saying that countries in South Asia usually look up to India. So did we miss an opportunity to institute a firm response to the second wave, asks the author. The second important parameter that he brings into picture is the strategic front. What do we mean by strategic front? When we look at the administration of Donald Trump, who happens to be the former president of United States of America, he wanted India to be a major stakeholder when it comes to Indo-Pacific strategy. What was this all about? This was about countering China. We know for the fact that there is rise of China both at the continental front and also on the economic front, trade related front, and also on the military front as well. When it comes to Indo-Pacific region, United States of America feels that it alone would not be able to challenge China, which is why it also brings India into the picture. So what do we have is India also acting as a counter to China, and which is why United States of America under Trump administration wanted India. And as a result, India was having a keen eye when it comes to the Indian Ocean. India also entered into relationship with Maldives as well, with other powers like Sri Lanka as well. But currently, when you look into the second wave, India is in a form of quagmire. India is in its prison of its own terms, which is why it may not be able to help the South Asian countries like Sri Lanka or Maldives. But during the same period, China has been making maximum efforts to influence all these countries. So what do we have? All these countries, when it comes to strategic locations like Maldives or Sri Lanka, will be very important for India. But since we are not able to support these countries, China has made massive investments. It is helping all these countries in the near future. They might be in a position that they may not get influenced by the words of India, because heavy investments are only being made by China right now. In fact, when we look at the condition of India, we have also been importing medical oxygen even from Bhutan as well. So ideally, India should have been one such partner which should have exported oxygen to Bhutan, but during the second wave, we have been importing oxygen from Bhutan. So ideally, as an elder brother, it should have stood for all these countries, but instead it is taking help from these countries. So on an indirect way, it is China which is helping these countries, and in the near future, the Chinese words would be taken more seriously, says the author. With all this in picture, the author says this will have a major impact on the India's foreign policy. How will it have an impact on the foreign policy? As we have discussed, India is one of the major stakeholder when it comes to South Asia. It has all smaller countries in and around it. It can be Bangladesh, it can be Nepal, it can be Bhutan, it can be Sri Lanka, it can be multiple other countries as well. India happens to be a leading power which also brings all these countries together. So when we look at these countries, India in the past has provided material aid, which is in the form of aid to these countries, political influence, because India has connections to all these countries along the border areas. It has been able to influence the political activities in the country, and at the same time, it has also had historical and cultural ties as well. Whether it is Nepal or Bhutan or Sri Lanka, in terms of language, in terms of religion, we have established historical ties. But currently, when you look at the aspirations of China, it has huge money, huge financial advantage, huge pockets where it has invested in all these countries. These countries are moving towards China, and in the near future, they may listen to the call of China, says the article. Apart from this, when we look at the foreign policy of India, India, in order to showcase itself as one of the major power, also wanted to have an ambitious military spending, or wanted to come up with the modernization plans as well. When we speak about the world, when we speak about being a superpower, you require two things. One is the economic might, the other is the military might. For the past few years, India has showcased that it has economic power. It also has to showcase that it has military power, for which what we require is the investment when it comes to the defense sector. With most of the money currently being spent to reduce the impact of COVID-19, India will reduce its investments in the defense sector. So ultimately, India will obviously delay the process of becoming a mighty military power, says the author. Apart from this, we have to look at what is happening at the national level. We have to look at domestic politics and economy as well. Why? Because all this adds to the international stature. When we go back and look into how India has been performing when it comes to the economic sector, we have had some economic distress even before COVID-19. Added to this, there is fall in the foreign direct investment as well, reduction in the industrial production, and what we have witnessed is a rise in unemployment when it comes to India. All this means that when it comes to economics, we were not doing good, and with COVID-19 this particular issue has been exacerbated. So what we are witnessing actually, on one side the military investments has obviously dropped because we are spending more on the COVID-19. On the other side, the economics is not doing good. So India, when it comes to the global reach, when it comes to the regional supremacy, may in the near future have to extend its plan, delay its process, says the author. Added to this, India is in a continuous phase of elections. Next, we will have elections in Uttar Pradesh, followed by which we will have national elections as well. Whenever we have had elections, one thing that is common is that we have seen extreme political violence, as we are currently witnessing in West Bengal, and at the same time, we will also see communal tensions as well. So when there are political issues, when there are political violence, when there is communal tensions that is flaring up in the country, which foreign company would want to invest in India? And as a result, because of the domestic politics and economy not doing good, and the economy overall not doing good, political tensions that consist, India will primarily focus more on the domestic front and not on the foreign front, says the author. Why? That is because we are in the continuous phase of elections. Since we are in the continuous phase of election, we would have the established government at the center. We might have the ministers, we might even have the prime minister engaging in the political activity rather than focusing on the external foreign sector. So the author here says that it is the foreign sector, the foreign policy, or the consequences of pandemic added to all this will ultimately mean that India's foreign policy may not be given importance, says the author. So what happens with respect to India and China equations? Earlier, India was seen as a competitor. Whether it was about producing the vaccines, we had what is called as the vaccine Maitri. India did expand its vaccine production as well. It did send the vaccines to multiple countries like Brazil and South Africa and multiple other countries. So we were seen as a competitor to China. And at the same time, when it comes to India and United States of America's relationship, we did engage Australia, we did engage Japan as well, and became a major stakeholder when it comes to the Quad exercises as well. But with pandemic, with impact hitting both on the economic front and also minimal investments on the defense front, what we will have is a conciliatory approach towards China, says the author. Apart from this, the article goes on to say that as of now, most of the countries, yes, they may hate China, they may not like the aggressive policies of China, the not so transparent process that is established in China, they are not accountable to the people, human rights get violated, but in spite of all these issues, countries will still continue to do business with China, says the author. Added to this, it was predicted because of the supply chain issues, because of COVID-19, and because of all issues that surfaced because of COVID-19, it was predicted that India would be an alternative market to China because of COVID-19 issue and supply chain logistic issue. But in spite of it, China will still be a global investment place and a manufacturing destination. And with issues of pandemic surfacing, with India not able to control the second wave, China will still be the manufacturing destination going forward, and it may delay the process for India, says the author. So what is the way forward? As of now, we have seen what is called as the aggressive posturing when it comes to the foreign policy as well as defense. Going forward, this will be more accommodative, reconciliatory, and we will have more cooperation, especially in the neighborhood, says the author. Why? That is because as of now, when you look into the relationship with multiple countries, let's say for example, United States of America or with respect to Russia, we have had increased relationship or enhanced relationship with United States of America. When they required hydroxychloroquine, it was India which stood by United States of America and also provided hydroxychloroquine when it was required. But when India required vaccines and raw materials, there was a temporary pause that was given by United States of America, and at the same time immediate support was also given by Russia as well. So what do we understand here? What we assumed as friend, enhanced relationship did not stand by us immediately, but our old friend Russia stood by us immediately. So this whole relationship of equation of friendship will also be questioned, says the author. So the friend enemy equations in the global geopolitics in the present scenario will be questioned, and going forward, India will have to make sure that all the opportunities given in South Asia to ensure that it can attract all the people will have to be taken upon, and India needs to ensure that it brings all these countries together when it comes to SARC. So India going forward will require what is called as the collective focus on regional health multilateralism to promote mutual assistance and joint action on health emergencies, says the author. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says an issue of lives versus livelihood. With the increasing cases of COVID-19, strict to moderate lockdowns are being imposed in multiple states in India. This has led to migrant workers losing their jobs, taking a long walk back to their homes in a different state. So the article here discusses the flight of the migrant workers, discusses the issues of their lives as well as the livelihood mechanisms. So let's try and understand what is the author trying to convey. What are the major concerns with respect to the migrant workers? Most of the migrant workers work in the informal sector of the economy, with the economic activities on temporary hold, construction activities largely restricted. Like the last lockdown, the migrant workers are facing a bleak future. They do not know what could happen to their lives in the near future, as they have lost their jobs, they have lost their rented accommodations, they have no sustainable income as of now, all their savings are done away with, and they do not have the food to eat, and they are spending exorbitant prices so that they can travel back to their hometowns. So these are the major concerns amidst the second wave of COVID-19. So what is the author speaking about? The author here brings into light what is called as number of laws that we currently have for the migrant workers, and at the same time the author also says we have n number of laws, n number of policies that are already present, but there is absence or lack of execution of all these laws. So it is not the absence of statutory protection, but non-enforcement of the existing laws, says the author. How does the author substantiate it? Let's say for example, previously what we had is called as the Interstate Migrant Worker 1979. What was this act all about? Let's say for example, if we have one of the person from Bihar, or let's say from Rajasthan, or let's say from Karnataka, or let's say from any state, if this particular person, let's say, is traveling to the state of Tamil Nadu, they will be interstate migrant. Why? Because they are moving from one state to another. So any person or a worker moving from one state to another will be categorized as interstate migrant worker. So the laws were present in order to safeguard the interstate migrant worker in the form of Interstate Migrant Worker Act of 1978. At the same time, we had one of the other laws called as the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act of 1970. What was this law all about? Let's say, for example, when it comes to the industries, we have two important personalities or the bodies. One is called as the employer, the one who gives the job. Then there is something called as the employee, that is the person who is working for that particular company. An employee can be two types. One is what is called as the permanent employee. The other is what is called as the contractual employee. This contractual employee will not get his salary or will not be on the paycheck module of the employer, but instead there'll be an intermittent person called as the contractor. So it is he who will hire these contractual workers. So to safeguard the rights of the contractual workers, to take care of them, what we had was the Contractual Labor Regulation and Abolition Act of 1970. All these laws did exist until recently. They were the one that was present. All the government rules and regulations with respect to the migrant workers and contractual labor was present under these laws. But we have a new code called as the Occupational Safety, Health and Work Conditions Code of 2020. This is also called as OSH code. This particular law has replaced, or you can call it as subsumed under this particular major law. So the Interstate Migrant Worker Act and the Contract Labor Abolition Act is currently subsumed under the OSH code, which is present from 2020. What is the major issue right now? So the author says earlier we did have the laws, now we do have the laws, but these laws are only on the paper, but when it comes to the ground reality, they are not being implemented. Why? Because as of now, when we have the second wave of COVID-19, there should have been rights that were supposed to have been stood by them. They should have supposed to have taken all these and exhibited these rights, and it should have been the duty of the employer to ensure the safety of the worker, but that is not being implemented in the present situation, says the author. So we have the existence of laws before and even now, but unfortunately all the rights that were supposed to be given to these workers are not being met is the first major issue. The government of India had also come up with number of schemes, programs and policies as well. Let's look into some of the schemes. We have the PM Swanidhi scheme. This happens to be one of the schemes that is funded by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. What was the aim of it? The aim is to provide credit or the working capital to the street vendors. Who are these street vendors? Let's say people having those vehicles which sell flowers, or let's say for example they have food stalls on the road. These are the street vendors. All these people were impacted by the COVID-19. To support them, the government of India came up with PM Swanidhi scheme. There are about 50 to 60 lakh street vendors when it comes to India, and most of these street vendors are currently in the major cities of Delhi or in Mumbai or in Bengaluru. But what is the major issue? During the second wave of COVID-19, most of them are going back to their home places or to their natives or to the rural areas, and the PM Swanidhi scheme is yet not helped them, says the author. Added to this, we also have the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, and with this particular program, in the past it has generated employment opportunities, but during the COVID-19, again there has been a drop of employment when it comes to the NREGA, says the author. So what is the major impact? When we look into all these arguments, yes, there are laws, yes, the government has come up with schemes and programs, but during COVID-19 it has not helped them, and as a result they're going back to their villages, and as a result the ones who came to urban areas looking for greater opportunities, they wanted to improvise on their economic front, but unfortunately they're going back from the urban areas to the rural areas, back to their hometown, says the author. So basically the author is trying to convey that these migrant workers are the major sufferers. In spite of them facing all these issues, we have not discussed about the flight of the migrant workers. We have not added them as part of the policy making initiatives. So it is they who are the major sufferers, says the author. added to this. Whenever there is an issue, ideally what should happen? There should be an immediate provision that has to be taken up. They should be provided food and shelter, and if need be, they should also be provided medical care as well. So whenever such a distress situation occurs, the major factors that has to be provided by the government is food, shelter to this particular people, and medical care. But only few governments in the state governments have provided this, says the author. Added to this, the major problem is that the government has not taken care of any of these migrant workers on all these fronts, is the criticism made by the author. So the author questions the agenda of the government. The government has imposed what is called as the lockdown. These lockdowns will help in saving the lives of the people because of the health issue, but at the same time, how is that we are going to save the lives of these people who are facing the economic distress, asks the author. On one side, yes, we are saving the lives because of COVID-19, but because they do not have any of the economic opportunities, because they do not have sustainable incomes for their own, we have to ensure that these are provided to the people. If they are not, then again they will come under economic distress, and ultimately it will be a major catastrophe in the form of hunger, in the form of basic social security, says the author. So going forward, all the corrective measures will have to be taken both by the central government, both by the state governments. They have to understand the plight of the migrant workers, ensure that during this temporary glitch and problems, we give them all the basic amenities during this temporary glitch, is what is the author trying to convey. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India reiterates need for global cooperation to beat COVID-19. What is this article all about? There was a virtual meeting conducted between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his British counterpart Boris Johnson. Both the Prime Ministers had the virtual meeting, and during this particular meeting, India has reiterated the stand that the world community will have to come together to bring an end to the pandemic and the menace of COVID-19. And at the same time, India has also said that more stronger trade relationship will happen with the United Kingdom in the near future. So what were the agreements or commitments made by the government of India as well as the government of Britain? Both the leaders emphasized, as of now, what we require is the global cooperation and solidarity to fight the menace of pandemic and achieving sustainable and inclusive recovery. So what are they speaking about? They spoke on the economic front, and they also established their stand on the security front as well. When it comes to the economic front, Boris Johnson has declared that he would invest about 1 billion worth trade and investment deals between both the sides. And when it comes to India and Britain, what we will have is an establishment or a negotiation with respect to comprehensive free trade agreement, and the two sides also discussed concluding an interim trade agreement to ensure early gains of the trade. Simultaneously, they also spoke about the defense ties as well, where it has specific emphasis with respect to the Indo-Pacific region, and that is in the form of Indo-UK Defense and International Security Framework Partnership. As of now, have a plain picture of these commitments and agreements. Going forward, we will have more editorials and columns. We will take this analysis in an elaborate way. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Sutra approach. This can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. Sutra here stands for susceptible, undetected, tested positive, and removed approach. Basically, this is one of the approaches which will give a clear idea about the trajectory of COVID-19 in the country. What do we mean by this trajectory? What has been the rise of COVID-19 cases? What has been the drop of COVID-19 cases? So a trajectory as to rise and fall of the COVID-19 is given under this Sutra approach. But this particular approach has not been recommended, or it has some errors, says this particular article. What are these these errors? When you look into the epidemiological models, they basically have the existing number of cases. On the basis of existing number of cases, they calculate what could be the virus load in that particular region in the near future. So we have the existing numbers. On the basis of this existing numbers, they predict what could be the future virus load in that particular region. But what happens when it comes to the Sutra model? It has what is called as the data centric approach. Because of this data centric approach, it has failed to predict the second wave, as there were too many parameters, a constant that was inaccurate, a calibration error was present, which may have led to predictions that did not signal the second wave, says this article. So basically, because of the issue that was concentrated on the data centric approach as used under the Sutra approach, we were not able to predict the second wave, is what is this article all about. So basically, just remember that Sutra approach is about getting the trajectory of the COVID-19, the rise and fall of the COVID-19 cases, because this Sutra approach was basically on the basis of data collection. It did not work efficiently and we were not able to capture the real numbers, and unfortunately we could not signal the catastrophic second wave, is what is this approach all about. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the main practice question. India's handling of pandemic could be a stumbling block to the country's claim to regional primacy. Do you agree? Justify. Next question. COVID-19 has thrown light on the presence of migrant labor laws and policies and has also exposed the absence of administrative oversight and execution. Substantiate. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review, give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. In case you have liked our initiative, please do like and subscribe to our channel. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.